We can see the Overproof slide.
Yep, you're good to go.
Excellent. So Overproof and Overproof team, this is us, the brands that we work with in the enterprise world. We work with all the top suppliers that are in the industry right now. So, Diageo, Campari, Pernod Ricard, all the big boys and girls that are out there. Who we are. So I'm based out of our Nashville field office here in Nashville, Tennessee. Our headquarters is in Miami, over 40 full-time employees working in Miami in the Wynwood area. And then we have our people who really take care of a lot of the backside of the work that get the menus to where we are able to see the information now. In Thailand, we have our data wranglers. So these are bartenders and other data analysis individuals that are actually going online, finding menus, confirming timestamps, dates, locations, doing all of the bulk work to be able to get the raw data, if you will, for those menus over to our team in India. And in India, that's where data annotation is happening. They're doing the QA process, quality assurance, of taking the data from the menus that is wrangled in Thailand and cleaning it up along with the AI tool so that we get the highest level of nice, clean data. Again, for accuracy, one thing I can tell you about data is there's no such thing as 100% accurate data. There never will be. That's the beauty of working towards trying to get it as good as you can through that QA process. But through those two teams in Thailand and India, before we get things over to Argentina for development, at that point, we're over 90% accuracy going into visualization. So these menus that we've acquired, they have been verified for date and time. They've been verified by their menu. Any piece of information that we want to be able to track it, to move it to the next level, has been accomplished from there. And what data we're using. So menu data, this is proprietary to us. This is our AI going out and acquiring those menus, as I mentioned, on a daily, hourly, minute basis and refreshing them overnight. Big data, we work with all the big data suppliers like everyone else, everything from VIP, Nielsen's, IWSR. If it's syndicated data, we're taking that in as well and then overlaying it with our proprietary data. Restaurant sales data, this comes from everything from POS systems, multiple API integrations through third-party companies, and a lot of different ways that comes through. And then also market activity. So using a lot of our other platforms of technology, including our field apps, we have actual representatives in the field taking photos of menus and taking photos of menus in the field, which are going into this as well. But next, I'm going to show you how those photos are not the best source of menus to be taken in. So real submissions, the separation of getting menus from online versus a field representative. Up until now, people have been retaining menus in the field. It's typically a sales rep or a supplier representative that goes out. And let's just say my name is, Tom, and I work for a vodka brand. And this week I've been tasked with going out and getting new Moscow Mule placements on menus. So now at the end of the month, my boss wants to see the result of all the money I've spent on my expense account in those Moscow Mule placements. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a photo in the venue of each one of the menus that I've gotten a placement of. Now, because I'm smart and I've been doing this a long time, it wouldn't be much for me to print a menu at home, maybe carry that to the venue with me. Maybe I got a friend who works at the venue. He can just print the menu out and I can run it for that day. And then I'll carry that menu around to a couple locations. Believe me, nothing would surprise me when it comes to the way this data can be manipulated by individuals to show favorable towards your KPIs and goals. So real submissions do not give you an accurate snapshot. We can see some menus here. Things are blurred. They're cut off. You're not getting an entire menu. Digital menu improves accuracy by over 85%, a lot of cases in the high 90s of percentage. We can read every single item on the menu that's pulled from a PDF, HTML, any type of menu that comes offline. And this is exactly what our AI tool is doing. It's going in and focusing on cocktails, beer, and wine, menu attributes. It then categorizes cocktails into classics, twists on classics, moderns, breaks down every one of those categories off of this menu, and eventually ends up in a full-scale report, which I'm going to share with us today. A lot of the report that people may have seen is the Overproof State of the Cocktail report. This is focused on influencer accounts nationwide. So one of the things that we do for our enterprise clients is we'll take a specific set of accounts, sometimes as small as 100 accounts, sometimes as large as a couple thousand accounts nationwide, and track the menus on those accounts over the course of time to where we can understand when menus are changing. If a menu changes so much as one keyword, our tool picks that up and flags the menu change, timestamps it. This allows us over the time to start recognizing patterns of menu change for certain establishments, number of items that are changing on those menus, and a ton of information that becomes available to us. I'm going to shift over to one of the actual reports here. Jason, would you let me know if we can see the map on my screen here?
Yeah. Yes, you're good to go.
Excellent. So I'm going to give you a little glimpse into our current database. So currently we have over 1 million on-premise venues inside of the database for this particular program. And what we're looking at here is a snapshot of report for 153,000 on-premise accounts. These are all accounts provided by enterprise clients. You can see high concentration in all the top states, California, Florida, the Northeast, Illinois, down through Texas and these areas. And what you're looking at is a snapshot for the entire nation of what's happening on menus as of right now. This data was refreshed this morning at 12:01 Eastern time. So this is live menu data that was refreshed and aggregated in. Shouldn't be much of a surprise to anyone that Diageo has the overall number of product mentions with 261,000 plus mentions across the 153,000 menus. And the way this tool works is it lets us show exactly who's showing up where and what's going on. So for Diageo, we can see Don Julio is really driving some business for them. We can see inside of Don Julio, exactly, it's Don Julio Blanco that's putting up the highest numbers. But if we wanted to drill down and say, hey, where's the most 1942 selling? Obviously, we can see that changes. Gives us good concentration across these markets. Tells us the exact number of venues. 2,500 bars have Don Julio 1942 listed on the cocktail list. So this is valuable information from a top-down perspective. Let's try drilling into an individual state. So we've switched over here, and now we're looking at a smaller set of accounts. So this is 1,133 on-premise venues inside the state of California. Now we can see in this model, it allows us to look at each individual venue. So if I wanted to find out more about Paper Plane, this is a headliner cocktail bar, I can click on that specific account, and I can do this with every account inside the database, all 150,000 plus. And I can go in and see, for one, who's their top supplier over when I'm looking at Paper Plane for this particular venue. Let's take a look. Scroll back over. So total number of mentions, I can see. First thing for Paper Plane, it is Campari with over 68 mentions of 21 products on the menu. Wild Turkey being the number one. Specific SKUs of Wild Turkey that are sold inside of this account. So again, this is a drill through of just Paper Plane as an individual account that we have access to go inside and see. If I wanted to get another snapshot of the California market overall, so this is how 1,600 venues in California. This is what the reports put together for a top-down market view. California being one of the top markets in the country for agave spirits. It's one of the few states inside of the nation where we see tequila actually beats vodka significantly in overall menu placement and drives sales in this market. Love to see this.
Hey Nick, if you're able to go full screen, that would help us see on on mobile devices.
Let me see here. That's about as large as I can go here for this one without being able to lose my filters, Jason. Hopefully this is good.
I'm going to quote you on that. That's the quote of the session right there.
Yep. So then we can also go in and we can see performing by category. So this is another one. And again, we can filter this every which way. But this is one that we were just looking at recently. So obviously tequila and mezcal is a big focus in this market. And one of the things that we've looked at, we've been watching since February to July right now, is the major growth that Patron and the Bacardi portfolio has had inside this market. It wasn't just a few months ago back in February where it was Don Julio and Casamigos that were really making up the lion's share of tequila and agave being represented on this report. And now we've seen Patron over the last 6 months have a major impact in this market on menus and show a lot of growth. California being a headline market for Pernod Ricard, this is one of the few markets where we see Absolut actually maintains a stronghold over Tito's. Important to mention that this is Absolut's full portfolio, including Elix and flavors, versus Tito's obviously being single SKU. Same thing down the line. Another great market for Bacardi. We can see how they maintain such dominance. I mean, over double digits inside the rum category for portfolio. And also one of the few markets where you see Hendrick's as number one for gin being represented on menus. Put this in context, New York is top for Tanqueray. We see Bombay and even Gordon's pop up in a lot of other markets. So as a subscriber to the platform or a supplier, you have access to these dashboards, which will refresh for you your designated amount of time and give you access to be able to go in and track not only what's happening with your accounts, but with all the accounts inside of our database by state, by region, or for some of our enterprise clients, they use this for the entire nation, 50 states, where we're tracking menu changes weekly, monthly, and quarterly, and tracking all of those changes that are happening to be able to make actionable decisions. And most importantly for this, KPIs. You know, if I'm a supplier and I'm tasking my team, for instance, Bacardi was tasked with making up menu placements in California with Patron, and we can see over the last 6 months, they've had a significant impact on the market based on the numbers. And the biggest thing about our reports, like a lot of other data houses, is we are completely agnostic. All of the brands work in combination, you know, with our platform, and the data that we put out is meant to influence no one in particular. It comes out as we see it, true and clear. The data gives us the snapshot of what's going on. So it really gives us a non-agnostic view of what's happening to influence those menus. I'm going to go ahead and unshare here and open up to some questions along the way. See if I can get myself back.
Oh, did I just kick you out? I'm sorry about that.
Maybe you did. It's okay. I feel like I'm back.
My bust. Okay, well, I got a question for you. These are actually
Please.
all my questions, but because you guys, please, if you have any questions, shout it out. There's so much going on here that it's difficult to wrap your mind around it. Nick, just hit the open share button, share menu button, or below the Supplier Summit logo, there's a plus sign and a option to share your screen. Okay, so I got a question here. How do you convert this massive amount of data into daily, weekly, monthly, strategic, and tactical planning? I'm just curious. It's just like you have all this information at your fingertips, and it becomes overwhelming very quickly. How do you say, I have a vodka brand. This is what I'm going to use this data, and this is what I need to do today?
So if you're a specific brand and you want to use the data, I can give you a couple examples. So for one, when we're working with clients, let's just say you are a pineapple rum and you're interested in finding out where other flavored rums are in the market, where they're being sold, what's on menus, or even what flavors are trending inside these specific markets. This would give me an opportunity to go in and actually see exactly inside the market which suppliers are trending with what brands. So I can give you an example of that, Jason.
Your screen's back, by the way. You're good to go.
Excellent. So if we're looking for right now, can we see that I just clicked on Bacardi for this particular screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so inside of Bacardi, if we were to deep dive into this portfolio, Jason, I can go in. Obviously, it's going to give me full portfolio. I would go into Bacardi Rum, and now I can see specifically where they're leading. So it's no surprise to me. Superior is obviously the core here, so that's where we see the most menu mentions. But then look at after that. Limon comes in, and then Cocoa, Dragonberry always surprises me. And then we come down to where pineapple is. So if I want to find out just where Bacardi pineapple is, I can go in and find the exact 244 venues that have that Bacardi pineapple mentioned on a menu. So if I'm a supplier that's looking to go after that particular brand or just to understand where they're being placed in what style of venue, that's a great tool for me to be able to go out and find things inside of the market. And then same thing for all of the smaller brands that are listed on here. I mean, there's a million brands as we go down. But obviously, if we wanted to look at another pineapple brand, we can go right over to Plantation, dominating inside the pineapple market. We can see over 1,000 more menu placements for Plantation pineapple than Bacardi, not a surprise. And I can go ahead and see exactly where that pineapple rum is coming on the 667 venues. And this gives me a whole nother snapshot of accounts. So what a lot of our suppliers will do is analyze this information in the platform, come back with these accounts and say, hey, these 667 accounts right here, Nick, can you give me a report on just these accounts? Let me know what style of venue is that. Is it more rum cocktails that are on the menu? Show me an overall report of what's happening in those venues. And I'd be able to come back to you and say, you know what, Jason, for those particular accounts, more than 300 of them are serving fancy pineapple inside Negronis in classic cocktails. And that's actually where the majority of the sales lift is for this particular brand. So, the ways that you can dive into it and analyze are really limited to only your imagination as a supplier.
Okay, is there a consulted service inside of Overproof that helps you with strategic planning and analyzing and predicting this data?
Absolutely.
Not predicting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for all of our clients who come on board with new technology, it's a lot to wrap your hands around of. So whether you're an enterprise client or an SME client, we have separate divisions of professionals like myself and Todd that are here to guide you along through this process every step of the way. I mean, not only do we want to do that, we take pride in helping you build a route to market strategy and seeing success from that. Because, we've been working on developing this tool for years. So to be able to take our smallest vodka brands and gin brands to our enterprise clients like Pernod and Diageo and show them pockets in the market where they can be successful and then see results based off of that strategy is very rewarding for one as a professional and super innovative for the technology to be able to see it progress that way, Jason.
Can you talk about predictive analysis? And the where I keep coming back to in my mind is actuarial data, where the insurance companies, they can predict how many Presbyterian ministers are going to die in the next year. Can you reverse that and be like, this is the expected growth of this particular brand, category, style of cocktail bar, etc.? Is there a crystal ball part of Overproof?
So I think, like anybody who's taking on historical data, you can always take pieces of history and then use them to try and predict the future, right? That being said, one of the things we both know about the beverage industry is there's a ton of intangibles out there. There's brands that pop up out of nowhere and trends that spark out of nowhere that kind of hit. And then we see progressive trends, which we can track. So, trends that we're tracking right now, can I forecast the growth? I can tell you that agave spirits will likely continue to grow, as will margarita and margarita variations inside the state of California based off of data that I'm looking at right now. I can tell you that the aperitivo and amaro category will continue to grow nationwide based off of historic growth that I'm looking at up until now. So to say, is there a crystal ball? No, I wish that there was a crystal ball, because then, I think we'd be able to use that internally and make ourselves all kind of money. But I think that's the beauty of data, is what we're all trying to do to be able to predict the future is get enough information, or as much information as we can, to be able to make decisions moving forward. It's what we try and do with anything. So Overproof can provide you with an abundance of on-premise data, menu history, trending menu information that's happening, and you can use that to be able to make your own predictions for the future.
Right. So let's say you're a small producer or an entrepreneur and you're saying like, okay, well, I want to build a brand, but I'm not just going to build a brand that because it was my grandma's recipe and because I love this category. I'm going to build a brand based on what the demand is in the market and because I want to sell it to Pernod Ricard. So like, what is the event horizon for what a reasonable prediction based on this data would be?
Well, I'll give you an example. As you know, right now,
I just asked you about forecasting. You said we can't forecast, but now I'm asking again in a different way.
I mean, everybody in the industry right now, I think, is trying to get on the agave wagon. I see a new tequila or mezcal brand pop up every week from existing suppliers and then older suppliers that are out there. So that's one of the things that we're really keeping a close eye on. But, as we look inside this tequila mezcal area, one of the things that we've been tracking growth on over the past 18 plus months, which I think, we can relate to and love to see. I love seeing brands like Ocho, El Tesoro, and Siete Leguas, how they're continuing to show growth, even though we've seen a little bit of loss here for El Tesoro. But inside the market, look where they're listed. Fortaleza, these are listed right below major brands like Herradura, Cazadores, Casamigos that have been on the market and, and really putting a lot of money investing into this. Il Silencio, we've seen a ton of growth out of them inside their respected market. So just watching how these brands continue to bounce around, and that's the beauty of it. The prediction model and the way you predict these trends, there is no 100% accurate way. One thing that we can see a lot of is seasonal. So one thing I can tell you right now, if I were looking into the magic crystal ball, it's that there's going to be probably 20% growth on pumpkin cocktails and spiced cocktails using winter spices going into the fall months. We will start to see products like crop pumpkin vodka, other pumpkin brands that are out there on the market start to make an impact on menus and shift into those winter spices. Is that prediction? Yeah, absolutely. We can do that off of trend information, data that's shifting. We also know that in cold weather states, we're going to see a shift towards whiskey cocktails during these months. One of the things I saw going into summertime in California was a major shift away from Scotch whiskey. So we saw Scotch really perform well through the colder weather months and then make a drastic shift off menus coming into summertime, where we saw RTDs and more margarita variations, which didn't surprise me, that more margaritas hit coming into the summer months. So that's another thing that you can look to predict based off of the menu analysis.
Okay, how far does the data go?
As far as time that we have it back or moving forward, or
how long have you been collecting data?
We've been collecting data for 3 years now. The data and menu analysis information that we've been pulling has been for about 18 months, where we're getting enough quality data to be able to get actionable reports from. So I like to refer to it as pretty much everything post-COVID. And one of the things I want to mention is that during COVID, this is when online menu accuracy increased dramatically. So, before COVID, you could go online to a bar and restaurant. Maybe they didn't update their menu for 3 years. You could be looking at my winter menu from 3 Christmases ago. But once COVID hit and everybody went to an online model, you got over 80% of venues have actual up-to-date menus that are being relisted by their POS carriers. So it makes it very accurate information available online.
Are you only looking at on-premise data, or are you also looking at off-premise data?
We are also looking at on-premise, off-premise data as well, overlaying those two items together. It's a completely separate suite of technology inside of our tastings portfolio, which is an off-premise application. And for more information on that, anybody can check out our website and schedule a demo with our tastings team to find out how we use the similar technology to analyze off-premise information.
Okay. With the, are you looking at the data that is coming from the distributor? And if so, is there a causal relationship? Like, is there a correlation between the upticks and downticks with the data? But I'd imagine it's not the same. So is there a causal relationship between distributor data and the data that you're collecting?
Great question. So let me tell you how we link that together. So I think the most relatable piece of data that you have if you work in on-premise or off-premise is a depletion report. Right? This is how we've all kind of been tracking what happens for many years. So I have a list of accounts and I understand where my case volume is going into those accounts. So what we're doing with our suppliers is, I'll give you an example. You take an herbal liqueur that we know goes into some specific classic cocktails, right? Whether it be a specific modifier or an aperitivo that we know goes in certain drinks. And now I start to see through depletion reports that account A on premise is going through 5 cases per month of this particular herbal liqueur. I now look at the menu analysis and I start tagging cocktails on the menu that brand is associated with. If that cocktail changes or repositions or anything happens with it, we're monitoring that growth and change in combination with the depletion report. So one thing I always like to think of is that VIP, your depletion information, that's one piece of the puzzle that we now have an opportunity to overlay with the menu analysis information that becomes, it really supercharges the data. When we're able to look at it for a major supplier and understand exactly what tequila cocktails they're seeing the most volume in. For instance, we know that Grey Goose Essences and Kettle One Botanicals see the most of their depletion inside of mule programs, right? We can see that from menu data. So now we can tell those suppliers, if you're looking to get more depletions, this is what you want to go after. Focus on your mule programs because that's where you're seeing the most depletion, not inside of individual cocktails on menus. And that becomes truly actionable data that I can put budget behind.
So you mentioned API connections, and that's a big source of a lot of the data. I would imagine and I'm just hear me out here. I would imagine that getting distributor data might actually pollute the data, because it's not an actual depletion. It's not a single execution of a product from to the end consumer. So, but you are factoring in VIP data into the macro numbers, into the macro data.
Correct. So two pieces of that. API for us goes both ways. So not only do we use API to get data, but also for enterprise clients, we visualize the data into some of the presentations I showed you in Power BI. But some of our suppliers, they visualize the data on their own. Some of the larger clients, as you can imagine, Jason, Diageo has buildings filled with people that do data visualization.
Yeah, they have an army of bean counters. Yeah.
Correct. And for a lot of companies that are large, we have an ability to API our data directly to them as well. So they can go through the visualization process, rework it and remaster it, however which way they want. And then to go back to what you mentioned about distributor data that comes through as depletions, every piece of data that we get goes through a rigorous quality assurance program. And I can't stress to you enough, that's one of the things I think really separates everything that we do with menu data versus any other company that's out there. We do not look at data unless we are very, very confident in the source and the quality of that data before it goes to visualization. And one thing I've learned firsthand going through the process and developing, these programs over the past few years is, the data it's the core that you get. It's the raw material. And like anything that you refine, it can only be as good as that raw material. And that's why we put so much stock in having quality verified digital menus and quality VIP and other data depletion reports that we can verify. We are confident in. When we display that information, because you got to remember, a lot of times if you're doing KPI programs, Jason, somebody's livelihood and somebody's bonuses could be accountable to the menu growth that's shown as the result of this. So we want to make sure that we're only working with clean data and not allowing any of the mediocre data, which believe me, we get tons of, to not make its way to the actual reports.
Okay, so if you go to such great lengths to collect the data and make sure that your data hygiene is on point, what would be the next step beyond that as far as connecting the data with the customer?
Yep.
And connecting the customer, the supplier, and the data, because that seems to be like the holy trinity there, right there.
Yeah. So at this point, it's really giving the suppliers access through the subscription model to the platform. So as a supplier, you come on board, you have access to the dashboards that I just showed you inside, and you can do all of the filtering and deep diving. And then you also get sessions again with your lead team members and your representatives who will guide you along through building a route to market strategy. Marilyn said she can't hear me. I just saw in there. Is my audio still good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah, Marilyn, maybe refresh your browser.
So for being able to get a route to market strategy. And the other thing about data that we always say, okay, you have data. Now what are you going to do with it, right? How do we pull action from the data?
Yeah, that's what the entrepreneur brand owners are thinking every day. It's like, what is going to make the difference today?
Correct.
And they have to ask them, and they wake up every day. It's like Groundhog's Day. They have to ask themselves that question every single day. What will make a difference today?
Yep. So for us, that's it. We want to be able to go in, be able to find the data that you can bring action to your team with and say, hey, team, I saw that in the last 3 months, we've lost 3% market share to our top 3 competitors inside of our space. Oh, wow, that's great information. Here's better news. I can tell you exactly where we lost it. It's in Spicy Palomas in West Hollywood. Wow, that's powerful data. Now I can immediately put together a budget, get a task force, get my people in the field and tell them, okay, I want you to visit these 20 accounts, start doing staff trainings, get our brand behind people, build advocacy, and let's retake the market share that we lost while I'm not wasting time and effort focusing on markets where I already have menu share.
Okay, so you do offer a service that is accessible to independent brand owners, not just enterprise clients.
Absolutely, yes. In fact, the majority of, enterprise clients makes up, 15 to 20 suppliers overall. And then the other hundreds that are out there all fall into SME, which we work with everyone from single state gin distillers focused on account sets, Jason, as small as 50 accounts in Lower Manhattan, to as large as enterprise clients focused on 100,000+ accounts. And the beauty of data technology is if you're looking at an account set regardless of whether we're looking at 10 accounts, 50 accounts, 100 or 100,000 accounts, you can get data that becomes actionable from looking at that data set.
Fascinating. Okay, I got one more question for you. Unless anybody else has any questions, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. We got a couple more minutes with Nick Nistico, so let's make it count. I am curious if influential cocktail accounts are lead indicators or lag indicators for cocktail trends.
Lead indicators, great question there. So we recently did an influencer report, which we've put out there. It's our the Overproof Tales of the Cocktail menu analysis. If anybody wants to download that, that's available on our website as well. It's a free downloadable report that you can have access to and get a good snapshot into what's happening in the top just under 200 influencer accounts nationwide. We determine those influencer accounts by cocktail bars that were nominated for James Beard Tales of the Cocktail or awards over the past 2 years that we've been tracking the menu data for. And one thing we can see is that influences that we see in those accounts have a ripple effect over the market. And the one that I can point right out to is, Jason, you and I were looking at El Tesoro, Tequila Ocho, and Fortaleza on cocktail menus for over a decade in all of our favorite cocktail bars. Right? We knew that those brands were great, and we knew that the mainstream was still drinking brands that they didn't know about what else was available inside that agave sector. And now, as a result of that, fast forward 10 years later, I'm looking at full state reports where I see Fortaleza, Tequila Ocho, and El Tesoro going into top 5 brands represented when you and I know they would have never been in the top 50. Years ago. So perfect example of how that's trended. And then I think the other one is the overall presence of Amaros. How cliche was it 8-10 years ago? Oh, Amaros are trending. Everybody's getting into digestifs and aperitifs. Guess what? Now they've made a significant impact on the market, and it turns out that everybody's drinking Aperol spritzes at every bar nationwide. So there's no denying the trickle down and ripple effect that influencer accounts have on the U.S. market.
Huh. I've just never seen any definitive proof of that. And I've always wondered, does a good cocktail program a trend make? And I guess that's true. Incidentally, Amore Amargo was started 10 years ago. So I wonder if Southern Tea gets
another one, Jason. I look at the impact of ambassador programs and what they have on the market. I think it's cool to note as we look at California. I know, for instance, that Patron has just invested a lot into their new brand ambassador program. They've hired some amazing representatives nationwide, and they're really doing a great job of getting into the market. And now I've seen direct impact from that on menus in influencer accounts. So just in the time since they've launched that program and putting more focus on premise, I've seen a direct result from the data of them having more of a market share on menus.
Take note, Team Enterprises. Do you serve agencies as well? Because I would imagine they would want that data to justify their cost.
It's always nice to be able to see data that justifies the cost of anything. And, we put it out there for anybody to have access to. Any agencies or suppliers that are out there that are interested in justifying programs like you just mentioned. It's a great way to be able to show that.
How about competitor data?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the thing about the agnostic data is one of the things the supplier says is, well, if I run this program and my competitor runs the program, do they have access to the same things? Yes. This is equal opportunity arsenal for everybody to go in and use the tools. But that's the beauty of it. It's how are you going to use it? And at the end of the day, once you derive the action, you still have to develop a sales cycle, be able to get people into accounts or reach out digitally and be able to put forth an effort to get into a sales model.
Okay, well, this is absolutely fascinating. That's so much to think about. If anybody has any questions, then chuck them in the chat, or you can reach out. Nick, can people reach out to you? How do you want to be contacted?
Absolutely, yeah. Nick.Nistico@overproof.com. You can find the information for all of our company representatives off of the website. You can schedule meetings with anyone from our company to get information, and they will steer you in the direction of the right department. Listen, all I can say to close it out for suppliers, whether you're small, medium, or large, data can help you, and data is very accessible now. This does not cost a fortune to get started and get the ball rolling. we can give you very great actionable pieces of information for a cost that's approachable for every single supplier to be able to go out there and use this to justify a lot of great programming and ROI.
Okay. All right. That's all I got for you, Nick Nistico. Thank you so much. The man who's shaking John Lemaire's hand, VP of Enterprise Clients at Overproof, a software and development company. This has been absolutely fascinating. We should work together.
Jason,
okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody who joined the call. I appreciate it for everybody who was there and anybody who sees it in the future on the recordings. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. See you soon. And that's it.